Return to Zork. This game got released in September of 1995, I want to think. I think it was 95. I'd have to double check. But this was the sixth game released of the Zork franchise. And this was also the first of the point and click variety. Now, this was a serious change from the format of the previously released Zork games because those were, quote, interactive fiction and using descriptions and all to ignite the imagination. So to change up to a point and click required some adjustments. I mean, the first one that did involve graphics prior to this was Zork Zero, and that involved only a certain things to give you visuals, like looking at a painting or a particular game that you must play. This was the first time that you had point and click. It also was the first to have actually digitized actors in the game. So this being released in September 1995, because you also had them each talking, makes sense. Because everybody was starting to get on board with the CD-ROM variety. This is also the latest set in the timeline, as the two games that were released after this took place earlier in the timeline, which you probably already gathered by the way I played through them all on the channel. Now, like I said, this is actually set after an event called the Great Diffusion. The Great Diffusion of, I guess, magic. And the Great Underground Empire is in serious decline. In fact, all the adventures that are set before it are considered myths and legends. Magic's fading from the land and people are slowly disappearing. And you get pulled into this because you are apparently the winner of a sweepstakes. To see what was initially supposed to be a beautiful land, but it's a land in decline. So now you get thrust into this adventure where you have this crystal ball with this wizard contacting you. I don't know where the hell he's contacting you from. You run into some individuals who not necessarily seem fully on the totally not completely sane, I don't think. You meet people. You have apparently a recorder and well, it would probably be like a tape recorder these days, and a camera, a Polaroid camera. And along your journey and your adventures, you must find these parts of a disc that must be reassembled and given power to help you get through this. And you must pick up things and be careful how you use things. Like other Zork games, it is possible for what they call a soft lock to happen. However, now you have a more visual appreciation of some of the puzzles you're going to have to encounter. Although one of and with some of the lunacy of Zork, you really have some out there puzzles. You must attend a comedy routine and succeed, which means you have to find a way to get jokes. And you do find a joke book, but you can't read it. But there's characters who can read it. You have to acquire these fragments, and you have to figure out how to get past the people who have it. And to progress and find things, you actually have to work through mazes too. I mean, there's a forest maze, and there's a bog maze, and I think there's another maze in there. The bog maze is quite random. And you encounter such characters like the witch, Ita. You name Al, slap your foreheads on that one. And of course, if you're carrying one item on you, they all react the same way. It's like, ugh, I'm not helping you with that. Of course, you'll need the item later. And you must travel all around to find all the pieces that you need, and you must even get through some tricky areas. And I do remember that at the time this game came out, there was a bit of a big deal. Because one of the actors playing some of the roles in the game, I think it was Jason Hervey from Wonder Years. He played Kevin Arnold's older brother. I think his name was Wayne or something. Yeah, he plays 3 trolls and the Troll King. It's a little easily intimidated. But they're, the trolls that he also plays are a little bit tricky to get past unless you pay attention, because there's clues everywhere on how to get past things. There's a sliding puzzle in the game. And if you don't know how to make a sliding puzzle work, or how to solve it easily, well, there's an easy trick for all sliding puzzles. You start with the top, get the top row in place, the next row in place, and then the remaining columns in place so that the last 3 just slide into place in the corner. Of course, the trick is, visualizing which one's which. You'll need directions to get through the dwarf's mind to get to where you need to repair the disc. And the dwarves give it to you in a comedy routine. Also, you need to collect certain items to make the statues work that will repair the disc. This includes a dwarven and a magic sword, which you will have to get repaired. Make sure you get back. Some certain moon rocks, or luminous rocks, or some other stuff. That the only way to get this stuff is to literally explore. Now, I admit, when I was playing through this game, I had some buggy situations that caused it to crash. So, save early, save often. Save multiple times. Because, like I said, it's also easy to get soft-locked in this game. I'm not telling you how to solve all the puzzles. You're going to meet people. You're probably going to get reactions that you might not expect. You have to get your way through everything. Get all the pieces to the disc to be happy and to be successful. And when you get to what apparently looks like a false front, you have to destroy it. Get in the castle. You must get over to the lair of the big bad, which requires dropping everything. So if you haven't grabbed everything in the game that you're supposed to grab, you are not getting across that bridge because you will not have it raised up. In the end, your final game, when you finally get in there and meet this guy, is a game you played earlier called Survivor, which is an interesting little game. And if you are unaware, and this is a game you learned how to play in the game, it pretty much comes down to being able to move. You have two characters. One is the wizard, one is the survivor. So obviously, for the wizard to win, he must successfully make sure that the survivor cannot move. And vice versa. Thing is, the wizard can only move like a knight in chess, in an L form, and cannot go back to a square he's already occupied. The survivor can move any number of spaces, apparently, and has to literally make sure they have to trap the wizard. Which is tricky. See, they could go back on a space they've already stood on. Of course, once a wizard leaves a space, that space is out of play. Now, this is actually quite easy if you know how to do the Knight's Chase puzzle. It's also quite hard if you're playing against an opponent who can corner you into a spot where you can't play. So as survivor, your goal is to, quote, eliminate the wizard's movements and pin them down. But if you're the wizard, your goal is to, maneuver so you can't get caught. And it is possible for each side to pass on moving. So now, when you win this game when you've won this game against the main nemesis of the game, you return Zork to its former glory, the Great Underground Empire to its former glory, and you successfully complete the game, which pretty much ends the Zork series. However, it was such a nice little hit for them that after this game was made, they made two more, using bigger and bigger stars, and including other puzzles. That's reminiscent of the Zork franchise, and allowing you to revisit old areas. So, it did pretty good because it did allow us to get two more Zork games out. Some with even bigger names linked to them. I mean, you look at the cast that was in Grand Inquisitor. Those were big names. And I'm so glad I got to play this at least once. I mean, I remember looking through magazines back in the day that this came out. And of course, the big heart, they managed, because Wonder Years was still big and still fresh in memories, that they put up there, hey, this is the guy from Wonder Years. He's in this. I mean, he wasn't a big name in Wonder Years, but, he was big enough. And I don't think this was intended to be, like, set as the last one in the series. I mean, they had intended it to be, quote, possibly a rebirth. I mean, with a name like Return to Zork, it should have been a rebirth. And yeah, they got 2 more games that are set before this one. But, it was a nice way to see the classic interactive fiction game be brought into the point-and-click era, where visuals are a must. It's kind of hard to go back it's hard to stick with the, quote, interactive fiction when the world is turning to a more graphical input. The computers have advanced enough. But for an old charm and to see where the whole franchise started, the Zork franchise is a good one to go to. And I'm going to talk more about that in the next retrospective video. This was a good entry to bring it into the modern day of gaming at the time. And it was a fun adventure which kept some of the Zork humor and Zork craziness to it. I do recommend this one, although be careful, it can be a little buggy on these newer computers. I mean, I had to restart mine like 2-3 times when playing through this one. And it's fitting that this one can be played in such a short time compared to the later ones like Nemesis and Grand Inquisitor. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever play it again, maybe when I'm feeling a little bit more nostalgic and want to go through the series again. But this was actually a very good entry. I appreciate that. And that's all I'm going to say about Return to Zork. Next time around in the retrospectives, like I said, I'm going to talk about the whole series, going through them in how they were chronologically set. But I will mention that the proper release order for the games. But until next time, I do thank you for listening to me. If you've listened this long, I hope you give the video a like. I hope you subscribe to the channel. And again, this is Rich Kale here on YouTube, Rich Gen X elsewhere. Bye all.